Welcome to the show where we try to navigate the wild and wonderful world of fatherhood. My name is Ryan. With me, as always, is my best man and co host, Dan, and we are first time fathers.
Welcome to the longest thing in the world, parenthood.
Oh, yep.
What causes parenthood?
Oh my God. I thought
This is a
something
family
else.
show, Ryan
Okay,
Hill.
and how do you think we're starting that family? So, today's episode is extra special for me because I get to interview my eldest brother and his experience with fatherhood. He is a father of 3 girls and he wanted a boy. So, sucks to be him, I guess, because I'm having a boy. But anyway, we're going to get his perspective on parenthood and his experiences as a father.
You know, as a sibling, everything is a competition.
It
How
really
fast you
is.
grow, your shoe size, what
Yep.
gender your babies are, everything.
It's true. Shawn happens to be the tallest sibling, so he'll always have that. But I am obviously the best looking, and what else is there,
Right.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Shawn. I know, but for those out there, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do?
I'm an apprentice with the IBEW. I'm currently going to school / working to become an electrician. And hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll be the final step in a long journey of random jobs and whatnot. The work is good, the pay is good, everything should be good.
Electrician's a great job too.
It's also not going to go anywhere. We're always going to need electricians.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like the construction industry is pushing for automation, like for lots of reasons. One, it's going to cost cheaper. Obviously that's going to be the first and foremost reason that they want to automate, but it's really, really hard on the human body for some jobs like masonry and whatnot, where you works all day, but they've already automated masonry. They have it where it'll lay, as long as it's a straight wall, they can lay an entire wall. It's slow, but it's automated and it can run, 24/7 and whatnot. And as they try harder to push for it, electrician, you're never going to be able to get a robot to do an electrician's job. I mean, I can't say never, like one day if we have somebody like Data from Star Trek, obviously he can do anything he wants, but
Data can do anything.
Data
I
is
mean,
the
the guys at
best.
Boston Dynamics do some crazy stuff.
Yeah, but I was actually reading something the other day about how Boston Dynamics, all of their videos, they're awesome and it's amazing what they're able to do. But they built the robot specifically to do this thing, right?
Oh yeah.
It's until we can get a robot or Android or whatever it is to be able to teach it multiple things and then expand upon that. That's where it all changes. But
yeah, I'm the oldest. I mean, I'm sure you guys, if you haven't, you should go back and listen to the Who Are Your Hosts episode. I'm the oldest of Ryan's brothers, so 3 younger brothers and a younger sister. Been married twice. First go around just didn't work out. But still friends with my ex, which is awesome because we have a kid together. So I have my oldest daughter Victoria, and then my middle daughter Amelia, and my youngest Noah.
And Victoria is going to be 20 in November. Amelia is going to be how old?
Amelia just turned 8 in March.
Just turned 8, yeah. And then Zella's going to be 2 in a couple weeks. Yeah.
Just a little bit after my birthday, actually. So
it's crazy to think about. So being 46, like we were just saying, you've experienced fatherhood across 2 decades. How has your perspective on parenting changed since Victoria? Like Victoria leading up to Zella, how has your perspective on fatherhood changed?
I mean, it's not changed a whole lot. Like with Victoria, I didn't know anything like any first-time father. You're just not going to know. But my ex-wife and my ex-mother-in-law, they ran a daycare. So they were kid experts, quote unquote. And they basically told me all the rules, like what to expect, what to do, how to like connect with them, how to discipline them, how to handle everything. And either because I'm too lazy to learn other ways to do things, or however you want to look at it, like I just kind of stuck to the simple rules I was taught in the beginning, and The only things that have changed a lot would be I've learned what'll make them get hurt, what'll make them flip out. Things that you just kind of trial and error with the first kid, you're able to realize, oh, they're going to fall down, they're going to hurt themselves. You don't have to freak out every single time. So I guess that parenting part has changed where, you don't have to break out the first aid kit because they got, boo boo. No, it's it's just normal. They do it all the time. If you freaked out all the time, you'd just always be anxious all the time because they are going to hurt themselves all the time for forever. Like they don't stop. Maybe like Victoria doesn't try and hurt herself all the time, but it took all the way until she was like, late teens before it didn't feel like she was actively trying to kill herself. Like really, that's the simplest rule. Like just keep them from killing themselves. That it seems like that's all they want to do.
As extreme as that sounds, just being around so many kids, it's not even that extreme. It's the kids are stupid.
Really, it's insanity, right? So Felix is 10 months old, and he's got a cousin who's 6 months older. And over the weekend, his cousin just decided to start flailing when he got set down and threw his head into a corner of a wall, left a big old knot on his head. It's like, bud. And like you were saying, Shawn, about just being anxious and like, what's going on? The whole room just stopped. And then myself, my wife, my sister, and her husband all were like in full panic mode. But my mother, my dad, and my older sister, who has 2 kids who are 18 and 16, were like, oh, poor baby. Oh, we'll just go do this. Meanwhile, the 4 of us are just like,
yeah, you quickly learn if you don't acknowledge it, it might not be as big a deal. If you're just like, oh, that's hilarious, let's do that again, or stand up, let's go, or like you just pretend it didn't even happen. A lot of times they won't cry and they won't freak out as often as they would normally. But you also learn if nothing you say stops them from just bursting into tears, they obviously hurt themselves bad enough. It's like, all right, come here, let's see how bad it is. Did you actually does this need stitches, or is this just need some ice kind of thing?
So Victoria was your trial and error, as you said. And then and then Amelia was just kind of going through the motions. Did you find between Amelia and Zella there was any type of even more hands off? Was there any difference there, even from Victoria to Amelia, from Amelia to Zella?
I mean, the hard part is it's horrible to say, but Victoria and Zella are normal. They're regular, normal kids. And Amelia is not.
No, Amelia is Data from Star Trek.
Yeah. She's smarter than most adults. She has near photographic memory. She was speaking full sentences by 1 year old. She started walking at 7 months old. So the big difference in the two for me has been helping Wendy, my wife, their mom. She doesn't see Zella being a normal kid. She sees Zella not doing what Amelia was able to do months and months and months ago. And so the big difference there is having to console and remind her she's normal. This is all normal. Everything she's doing is normal. You only have one kid to compare her to, and that's the wrong kid to compare her to.
It's not that Zella's an idiot. It's that Amelia was just a phenom.
Every parent thinks their kid's a genius, and she's probably not one of those star-born kids, the kid that was in Mensa at 10 days old because he could talk or whatever. Those freaks of nature that are just phenomenally awesome. She's
like
just
me.
Yeah.
That kind of goes back to what we had spoken about a few weeks ago of you can't compare a kid to a kid because every kid is different. And especially when there's such a gap like that in a learning curve and or how they develop, just because the quote unquote standard or what you've seen before is one way doesn't mean that's always what it's going to be. And it doesn't mean that anything else is wrong.
No, and one of Amelia's friends, he started reading at the same time as he started talking.
Wow.
So we took him out trick-or-treating when they were 3, and he could read signs. He was reading signs. He read, it said danger, poison. He said, Mom, this says danger, poison. Can we go up to their house? And it's at 3, imagine trying to read poison. You can't sound it out. It's not one of those words that's, it doesn't use phonics. But so you're like, wow, this kid's reading. My kid, who's supposed to be, above average, Victoria or Amelia, she didn't read until she started school. Like she just didn't. She had no interest whatsoever. If a kid, this is a big piece of advice. If you haven't read in a book and you're a first time dad, do not force anything on a kid. If they don't want to learn to read, don't force it on them, or they will reject it completely. And I tried to help her read and tried to get her interested in it, and she just had zero interest. And so we just kind of let it go. And then one day she decided she wanted to read. She was reading within 2 weeks. It's like, I don't know. I don't understand kids. Like you just gotta kind of watch them and make sure they don't hurt themselves.
Totally. And it's really incredible because Victoria was my first niece, and she was all I knew as far as babies go for a very long time. And Victoria is smart. She's she's intelligent, and she was very smart developmentally as well. It was really impressive seeing all of these things that she could do or that you wouldn't expect, right? And then Amelia.
I know.
And Amelia was after I had already experienced many other kids and knew that, yes, Victoria, it was smarter than your average bear, but then Amelia, it was just like insane. Just mind blowing. My favorite story to tell people is that one you told me where I think you guys were playing Minecraft or something like that. And you're like, look, it's lava. And she's like, that's not lava, Dad, because it's underground. So it's magma.
Yeah. And this is like, I taught her this in 2020 during the pandemic. Where everybody's on lockdown, so I just played Minecraft. I'm like, I got plenty of time, And Amelia would watch with me, and so I taught her to play. And so she was 3. She wasn't even 3 yet technically, because this was January 2020, and I taught her to play Minecraft. And it took her a week or so to get the controller down. But once she started getting the controller down, she didn't want me to help anymore. Like, once kids figure something out, they like really want to try and do it on their own. So she was playing Minecraft. So we started playing together, split screen, and we went down into one of the caves, and I was like, oh, sweet, look, there's lava. Because I don't, until you find lava, you can't make it, you got to find it. And yeah, she's like, well, it's underground, Dad. So it's actually magma. It's only lava when it goes up onto the surface. I was like, well, you are right. That is accurate. What do you say? Yeah, discipline a kid for being smarter than you. So, but yeah, my favorite story is it would have been that same year, but it would have been Christmas. So it's Christmas when she's 3. We got our brother-in-law a picture of him and her at the beach from the summer of 2019. So she should have been 2 then, but BJ showed her the picture, and he's like, look, Amelia, it's us at the beach. She's like, oh yeah, that's when we were up north. We were on the beach. Oh, we were making the pizzas in the sand. So at 3, she could remember something from the previous summer,
a year and a half ago.
Yeah. And like it took BJ a second, and he was like, oh, we were making pizzas in the sand. Like, how would you remember that? I don't know.
It's not just clips and phrases either, because I can remember one time when I was 3, I can remember a traumatic event when I fractured my foot. I jumped off of a dresser and, fractured my foot. But I don't remember anything after jumping off of the dresser. I don't remember any of the pain. I don't remember my mom frantically making phone calls and being rushed to the hospital. I don't remember any of that. I remember another clip where it's like I'm running up the hill at my grandma's house in Howell, and then I see my grandma, and then that's all I remember. I don't remember much. I can remember little clips and phrases, right? But for her to be able to have that type of recall is outrageous. Like not just what you were doing, not just saying, oh yeah, I remember that. That was fun. Because there's a lot of things that I could say, yeah, I remember that. That was fun. But I can barely remember what the hell my breakfast tastes like today. Like her recall is outrageous.
And it's still like that. Like she's slowly starting to lose the recall of like the 2. She was 2. I'm sure it'll slowly fade as she gets older. I don't think she'll have that clear recall forever, but I don't know. We don't know because she's in some areas she's leveled off to like be on par. Like she's above average all across the board in school, but not where she's like Einstein levels. You know, like where the teacher's like, oh, well, she needs to be put in this class or that class. We've talked about having her tested and whatnot, but she's happy. She seems to be doing well. It's like I don't know if I want to rock the boat, so we'll see. But I think that's another thing where you shouldn't compare kids because like if you compare her to other kids, she was always leap years ahead of the other kids as far as developmental status. But now you see her in class with the other kids and she's not like this beacon of awesomeness that she seemed to be, you know, like she's still great. She's still awesome. I love her to death, but she's starting to reach that plateau that kids all seem to, you know, like the little boy that can read at 3, he's kind of a knucklehead. He really struggles in a lot of areas where you're just like, what are you doing, kid? You know, he's being a kid, you know, or like Amelia, like even with her good memory, like if something bad happened, it was difficult to get her to not realize every time it would be bad because she would just remember the bad thing so vividly. But being a kid, she didn't get the concept that just because you jumped in the water and hurt yourself doesn't mean every time you jump in the water you're going to hurt yourself, you know. But she would think that way because she would remember, you know, jumping in the water and hurting herself. So she was still a kid. You still had to help her with stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There were challenges though. Like you had to be careful. Like you couldn't tell her like, hey, maybe tomorrow we'll do this. You know, like parents will do that a lot, knowing that by tomorrow the kid's not going to remember. She does, you know, so always. But
I've actually got a niece that's similar with memory, where you'll say something a year ago, or you say something, you know, 6 months ago, or whatever it is, and I'll only see her once every few months, but I'll show up. You know, it's been 6 months since I said this thing. It just on the cusp, I just, oh yeah, and she's like, hey, you remember when you said this thing? Oh crap, yeah. I do.
Like, oh, yeah, you said we were gonna go get ice cream, remember?
Right, yeah, you know, and so like the favorite thing was I play Sudoku a lot. I remember there was a day that it was a Christmas one year that I got a couple books of Sudoku puzzles, and I started, you know, playing those, and she was fascinated by them. And so she said, oh, next time, you know, you come over, can you bring that with you? And I was like, oh yeah, sure. And then I don't think I saw her again until Independence Day that year. I didn't remember that I said that, but the first thing she said, hi, did you bring Sudoku? Or did you bring that number game? I was like, what? And then her mom goes, she's been talking about it all morning. She's talking about Sudoku. And I'm like, no, I didn't. Why would I bring that? And, oh, you said you would. And I was like, oh, no.
Did you immediately go to the store and buy a Sudoku book? Because I feel as though I'd have to.
We were at my mother-in-law's place, and she had some at the house. So I just pulled one of those.
Nice.
Good. Good.
I mean, worst case, there's an app.
Totally.
I have 2 of them on my phone. So, so with the large gap between the 3 kids, how do you navigate things differently, you know, comparatively? I know you mentioned things aren't necessarily as big of a deal. So, you know, to say, oh, well, you know, brush it off, let's just kind of move on. But like, are there different things that you do, like that you've thrown out, say, oh, that was a bad choice, let's just change it to this? Like, is there anything major that has kind of steered you into parenting a little differently?
I don't know. That's a good question, actually. You don't often, I mean, I'm sure new parents, like especially new fathers, guys like to blame themselves for errors and mistakes. We're pretty hard on ourselves. But like, you won't remember the mistakes. Try not to sweat them, because I know I made mistakes with Victoria. Like, there's just no way I didn't, you know, but I don't remember anything where it was just like, oh man, that was stupid. I better make sure not to do that. You remember at the time, but now with Amelia and Zella, I've just been recalling the things that I knew worked. You know, I haven't looked back and gone, man, that was dumb. Why did I do that? I remember like the positive things. And I mean, that might be a me thing, but really, I would hope that it's most dads. You know, try not to be so hard on yourself. You're going to make mistakes, but as long as your kid's happy and healthy and fed, like whatever, they'll get over it. They they won't remember. Victoria tells me all the time I'm a great dad, which is awesome. Because like I constantly thought, I'm just the shittiest father ever. Like I felt like I didn't spend enough time with her. I didn't help her with her homework enough. I didn't make sure she ate right well enough. Like just all these things that, I'm sure any new dad is just like, man, why am I not doing this better? Why am I not doing that better? I guess that would be the big difference between the kids, that this time around, I'm not that hard on myself. I have one that turned out great. She tells me I did okay. So I'm going to try and do it the same way with these ones and hope for the same results. Hopefully better results, you can only hope to try and do better, but I guess that would be the big difference.
You mentioned something in there, your daughter telling you like that you're a great dad. I can't imagine there's a better feeling than your kids saying like you're the best. Like I can't imagine there's anything better.
No, really not. Ryan, yours isn't born yet, and Dan, yours is still a little guy.
He's still goo goo gaga. He's not speaking real words.
But like once they get past the year mark and like he starts crawling and grabbing stuff and and then at the almost 2-year mark, Zella's starting to talk. Same with Amelia and same with Victoria. Like once they get to that age, it changes because now you got to teach them everything. I mean, you don't have to. I'm sure there's parents that don't, but there's this pressure to make sure that you're teaching them how to walk, helping them walk, keeping them from falling over and hurting themselves, encouraging them to say words, dog and cat and door. You're focused on them a whole lot more and trying to make sure that they're learning and getting the information they need to be a good little monster. But the whole time in the back of your head, you're just thinking, I'm just a shitty father. Like that was my thought. I mean, I'm a semi-pessimistic individual, but like I constantly just thought how horrible of a job I was doing. And, I told my ex-wife this many times. I told my mom this many times. I told my current wife, I've told her a few times, because even now, even with the experience of the first child, there's still instances where it's just like, man, I just suck. And yeah, like for Victoria, and Victoria's an adult. She's a grown woman, and we have a very open relationship as far as talking to each other. So if she thought I had been a bad father, she would tell me. We have that kind of relationship where she would not only tell me, but go into great detail as to all the ways that I sucked as a father.
You did this, and you did this, and you did.
It's her personality and our relationship, she totally would. But yeah, so for her to say that I did a great job, it's like, thank God, you just feel this tremendous weight lifted off you. Like, wow, this is just, I did it. You have one job and apparently I did a good one. So that's good.
That's super awesome. That's really fantastic. Honestly, things like that, those are the little things that aren't so little that I'm really looking forward to. Holding my son for the first time, hearing him say dad or daddy or dada for the first time, and having these conversations and those compliments, those are the things I cannot wait for. Like, it's just giving me butterflies just thinking about it, because I mean, even here in Victoria, just when we talk on the phone or whatever, and she's like, "Love you, Uncle Ryan," I'm like, "Oh God, my heart,"
Like right now, I don't have the words, but whenever I get home from work, Felix gets all excited and he stands up and he crawls as fast as he can over to the gate and pulls himself up, and he's all giddy to see me. So
that is a great feeling.
I love it. That's right now. That's my moment of oh, you're doing great. Like it's just him getting so excited to see me and pulling himself up and just waiting for me to pick him up. Like he's just like uppies.
Well, if nobody's told you, or if you haven't read about it or seen a video or listened to like your own podcast, they do go in phases, and all 3 of them had weeks where they did not want anything to do with me.
Oh, yeah.
Like nothing, like refused to even be picked up by me and stuff. So it's like, but it goes away. They can't talk. So, there's no real way to know what they're thinking. But for some reason, they just decided, I don't like dad right now. It's like, I don't even know if they didn't like me, like if that's the right feeling they were having. Because like if you went and tried to go play and do something with them, they would go play. They still interacted with you. They just, for some reason, will completely reject being picked up or hugged or, love them like kids are. I mean, it sucks. I'm not gonna
I
say
get-
it doesn't suck. It
Yeah.
does. It does feel horrible, but it goes away. And like for some reason, like one day they're just like, "Oh, Dad!" And you're like, "Oh, now you like me again?"
Oh, thank God. Thank God. Oh, they
I
still love
was,
me.
yeah, I was
You're
so,
almost tempted to reject them. You're like, no, screw you. But no.
no, I was so thankful that when Felix was still within a month old, it was our first pediatrician visit. The pediatrician stopped what she was saying at the time, looked at me and said, "Just remember, you're going to be gone all day. You're going to get home. It's going to be late, and he's going to start crying. It's not you." And that was so helpful to me because sure enough, like a month later, it was like every day for a couple weeks, it was I'd get home, he'd be so happy for like 5 minutes, and then it was okay, gone, just screaming because it was bedtime, right? He'd been up for too long. It had been however many waking hours, and it was past the baby limit, and he was overstimulated, and it was just like, no, I'm done with you. I need to sleep. Give me mama. So
It happens with Zella quite often. Current shift, the job is voluntary overtime, so it's 5 10-hour days. So every day of the week, I'm getting home. I mean, 5:30 isn't super late, but it's late enough. When she goes to bed at 7, you get about a half an hour of happy-go-lucky playtime, and then she's just like, a little demon child that doesn't want anything to do with you because she's just she's ready. She's ready to eat food and get cleaned up and do her little, sleep time routine and
Yeah.
go to bed. So
So flipping us back in a similar vein to what Dan was asking, as far as how your perspective has changed or how you're handling the different developmental stages from child to child. What about the pregnancy months? How did you handle it each way? Because for me, I'm at a loss for what to do sometimes. I feel helpless. There will be days when Denara's just high on life, feeling great, feeling good, baby's kicking, she's laughing, it's wonderful. And then the next day she'll wake up and she'll be an emotional wreck the whole day just because the hormone. And I don't know what to do, but you have 3 kids now. So did how you handle the partner aspect of it change from kid to kid?
I mean, probably a little, only from the standpoint you get used to it. You are surprised when it happens each time because it happened before. It really just comes down to don't take anything they say personally. Just assume that you're living with a drunk person and they're going to say random stuff and they don't actually mean it. They're just drunk. Pay attention when they say their feet hurt and they're just annoyed and crying and whatever. And like, just start rubbing their feet. They said their feet hurt. Don't wait for them to ask. Don't think that they're going to ask. Don't try and figure it out. Just try and do what you can to fix the problem. And then also sometimes the problem is you just go away. They don't want to deal with you either. They're huge and hot and uncomfortable. Like my first wife, she worked as well. She worked all day, and even not pregnant, there's lots of days where people get home from work and it's like, you know what? I just need to be alone. Don't talk to me. Don't touch me. And that's normal. That's not drunk, crazy, pregnant lady, so imagine coming home from work and you're carrying around a baby inside you that's annoying as all can be. And so it just adds to it. It took some effort with the first go around because you're just caught off guard. Like she cried to a TV commercial. The first go around, you're just like, why? What is wrong with you? Like you just don't get it. And then, but after 9 months of it, it's like, oh, you're just a pregnant lady. You just kind of learn all the different things that are going to make a pregnant lady be a pregnant lady. So with Wendy, when she got pregnant, I knew going in, like, all right, she's going to have mood swings like crazy. And she's going to have days that normally wouldn't be that big a deal are way worse, because she's pregnant and whatnot. And so you're just like, all right, well, I mean, and a lot of times it just came down to like, what do you need from me? And whatever the answer is, you just do it. Like, the answer is, I need you to leave the house. Be like, you know what? I can go see a movie. Like,
Yeah.
I can go get food. I will
Yeah.
see you later. Like,
Yeah.
I went out at 3 a.m. I think to get Mountain Dew for Renee. I went out. I don't think it was crazy hours. I think it was like almost midnight for Wendy and got her ice cream. It's like, I mean, you don't have to do this stuff, but it's already a difficult situation. So like making a trip to the store at whatever random hours just like wasn't that big a deal.
Yeah, anything to soothe those wounds. I think my first moment of realization that, I mean, for the first very long while, there was nothing new except for the fact that she was pregnant, yeah, and she was starting to grow a little bit. And I was like, man, she's not having any of these, emotional outbursts that a lot of people talk about happening, and everything is great. And then she had one. But because she was normal disposition up until that point, I forgot, I forgot she's pregnant. So my initial reaction, and I said this out loud, much to my demise, the fact that I'm still alive is a testament to how much she loves me. But I was like, what the hell is going on? And she just, through tears, says, I don't know. And then it hit me. I was like,
Oh shit.
oh, this is one of those things. Okay. Got it. Nice. Okay. And then my entire attitude changed. I realized, okay, I need to go into just a mode of, what do you need? What can I do? How am I supposed to help? How can I do this? What do I need to do to make the situation better? What do you need from me? Do you need me to leave? Do you need me to rub your feet? Do you need me to hang from the ceiling fan from my toes? What do you need? Whatever it is. But it was that one thing. She's just like, I don't know. And then it hit me. But it took me by surprise because, like I said, for the first 4 or 5 months, she just wasn't having any type of outbursts or extreme emotional changes. Like some subtle changes here and there, but nothing extreme. And then just that first time, it took me by surprise. And so now I'm like on my guard at all times, not thinking that it's going to happen, but just ready for it if ever it does.
Yeah, and sometimes they really don't have any idea what the problem is, and it's difficult because guys tend to be clueless sometimes. But and we like to be fixers. We want to fix the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes trying to fix it makes it even worse. So it's like you got to watch that. Like if you start asking her a couple of questions on what you can do to make it better, and if she seems to be getting even a tiny bit worse, it's just like, you know what, I'm gonna go get a drink of water. I'll be back. Just go to the kitchen, go, just like walk away, give her a couple of seconds to stop crying and calm down. And then most of the time they go back to normal and they have no idea why. They're like, I don't know what happened. I'm sorry. And it's like, you're not gonna be sorry. Like, whatever.
Yeah, I always felt bad in that point when they apologize. Like Liz would apologize for something. I'm like, no, don't apologize. I'm sorry for doing this to you.
Yes, totally.
My part was fun. Your part sucks. Okay.
Yes, like the very next morning after that first outburst, she texted me. She's like, good morning. I'm at work. She texted me. She's like, good morning. I love you. I hope you have a good day. I'm really sorry about yesterday. And I was just like, sorry for being pregnant? Like, what do you mean you're sorry? Like, you're carrying my child. I can handle, a little bit of an emotional outburst. I'm sorry for the way I initially reacted, like I was just clueless. I had no idea what was going on, and I should have, I should be prepared for this, but I wasn't. I thought I would be. I thought I would be ready, but I wasn't.
We got lucky because Liz didn't have any major random outbursts, right? There may have been things that happened that she got one way or the other from, but it never threw her completely out of whack. But her and I have actually talked about it a lot, where her moments were exaggerated moments of something that may have set her off anyway. Mm-hmm. So like it would be something that not pregnant Liz would be somewhat emotional for, right? Whether that it was just like a show being something, or this food tasted gross and it shouldn't have. I spent all this time doing this thing, where it doesn't necessarily send you over the edge or anything, but in the moment you're just like, oh crap. Yeah. Well, in those moments, she might have gone that next step to being a little broken down. But totally. There was no, that I can think of, no random bursts of just like explosive tears and then, what's wrong? And I don't know. Like I don't remember any of those. So we lucked out in that aspect. So,
but I also feel as though up until that outburst, I felt as though I was kind of missing out on something. I don't know why, but I just wanted to see it. I just wanted to see what would it look like, not because I wanted her to go through it, because of course I don't, but it's just another sign of the baby. And And it's just one of those things you always hear about in pregnancy, and I want the full experience, you know?
Sure. And it's something that gets hyped up, and it's something that you're expecting because everyone said, "Oh, they're going, your wife is going to have these." And so it almost becomes something that you expect because you're like, well, it's similar to what we were talking about earlier with kids, right? Oh, well, it has to happen. Why hasn't it happened?
Yeah,
It doesn't
totally.
have to happen, right? But you just get into this thing of like, oh, well, they said it was going to, so why hasn't it happened? Because it might not happen, and that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, not just the emotional stuff, but like Renee didn't have any morning sickness. Like I think she got sick one time. So it's like a lot of women will talk about how horrible their morning sickness was. And it's like, well, that doesn't always happen, like,
Right.
so you just gotta kind of go with the flow with your wife and your significant other.
See,
And
that's where we had it bad. Liz was sick the entire first trimester.
That's crazy.
And it wasn't even, people, it's morning sickness. She had all day sickness. She was from morning to night. She was feeling awful I mean, she, at the start of the pregnancy, actually lost a lot of weight because she couldn't eat anything because she was just constantly feeling sick and nauseous and getting sick. And it was rough, but it like flipped a switch one day and then it was just gone. She was in the second trimester and then things started moving.
that's good.
Yeah, yeah, that was one thing that Denara did not experience. She had maybe 1 or 2 days only where she felt
Mhm.
slightly nauseous, and not even bad nauseous, like not debilitating nausea or anything like that. She was nauseous for like a couple hours, and
Mhm.
then that was it. She's not thrown up a single time during this pregnancy, to my knowledge, and that is one thing I'm glad that she didn't experience. So when Victoria was born, you were 27.
Yeah, I was already old, for having kids based on
Right.
previous generations. So
And now, when Zella was born, you were 44?
45. Yeah,
45.
40, 44 or 45. I guess technically I'd be 44 because she was born. No, I'd have been 45 because she was born 3 days
Just
after
after your
my birthday.
birthday.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So
So, what, if any, challenges and rewards of being a father in your mid 40s? What were some of the challenges that you faced, and your outlook really? Because, when you have a child at 27, you're looking at, her being 20 now. She's going to be 20 this year, and you're in your mid 40s, and so she's out on her own. You're in your prime years, but now you have this new baby. So how has your outlook changed with Zella than it was with Victoria? And what are some of the challenges you're facing?
it's funny, like you sent me the list of questions you were hoping to ask, and I just read them over, and I didn't give them any like deep thought of any kind. It was just kind of like, okay, this is something that would be horrible or too personal or dumb, or like for whatever reason, like, hey, I don't want to answer this question. Save yourself some energy. You don't need to ask it. But this question was the only one I was like, it's gonna sound so horrible. So it's like, do I want to answer this question? But it's like I told you, they're all fine. Like the only reward is the same reward as the others, where it's just like I like kids, I enjoy kids. I mean, they don't annoy me for the most part. I mean, obviously, kids are gonna annoy everybody at some point here and there, but I like them. I like babies. I like watching them grow. I like having them around. So I get that enjoyment out of it, but everything else, there is no amazing reward at this age. like, I mean, maybe I don't feel the pressures that I felt when I was younger. Like you have a whole lot more of a effort kind of an attitude for certain things.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it wouldn't be the same for everybody, So like if anybody listening is like older and thinking about having one more, it might be the best thing ever. Like one of my friends is the same age and he has 8 and 6. So he doesn't quite have the 2-year old like I do, but he says it's the greatest thing ever happened to him. So, and he's 1 year older than me. So, he's an older dad. But for me, one, I thought we were done. Like Wendy had a horrible experience with Amelia. She almost died. We were in the hospital for a week. So that was traumatic enough. She was like, I'm good. One was enough. And that's how it was going to be, to the point where she found some urologists in town, got their names and numbers. I think it's only like $500 for a vasectomy, like if it's not covered by your insurance. So it's, it's expensive, but not as
Oh, right.
expensive as a kid, so
Yeah.
$500 versus 500,000 across 20 years.
yeah. So we put it off, or, I put it off just, like I didn't want to take a day off work to figure it out. I didn't want to take a day off work to go get the procedure. I was just kind of trying to figure out when I wanted to have it done. So I put it off, and, surprise, we have another baby coming. But I was happy because she was happy. Enough time had gone by that she's like, well, maybe it would be good to have another one. So
Yeah, she kind of got over those fears from the trauma and everything. And
yeah, exactly. But everything's so much harder. I try and stay positive, but like I'm getting closer to the grumpy old man stage. Like excessive noise is getting super annoying. Like kids are freaking just noise machines, So it's like normally you can just tune it out. Like if you haven't figured it out yet, Dan, it will come. You will just start, won't even notice things are going on in the background until your wife's like, "Hey, would you have him knock that off?" And you're like, "Oh shit, yeah, sorry, I tuned that out a long time ago. Sorry."
Oh yeah.
change channels.
Yeah, you will get used to it. But then apparently, I don't know if it happens for all people, but for me, like it's gone away where it's harder for me to ignore it.
Well, I have the bonus
It's
of I'm
fun.
also making the noise. So
Yeah. Yeah. I feel as though Felix is going to be the one who Liz is like, can you tell your dad to knock that
yeah, more
off?
than likely.
Um, so it's harder to deal with a little kid like that. I'm tired more, I get tired quicker and easier. Like one of the things she loves for me to do on the trampoline. One day we were all jumping on the trampoline, and Amelia wanted to jump harder and higher and, spin around and stuff. And she doesn't always watch where she's spinning. So to make sure Zella didn't get hurt, I picked her up and was jumping with Amelia with Zella in my arms. And she thought that was hilarious, like just the most fun ever. And she didn't want me to stop. And eventually I literally just couldn't jump anymore. And I just like laid down on the trampoline, and she's like, more, more, more. And I was like, no, I can't even get up. There's no way. I will just drop it.
I'm sleeping here tonight.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like I just feel that age that I didn't feel with, and even as little as 8 years ago with Amelia, it was different. My energy levels were different and stuff. So the rewards aren't as plentiful as with the first two. It sounds horrible, but maybe it can be a cautionary tale for anybody that's thinking about having another one. Like, all right, well, if you're on the fence, maybe, because like I'll be 64 when she graduates high school, right? Like that's old. Like, I mean, it's not like ancient. There's lots of people that are old and they live life fine, but to be that old when they graduate, it's
Yeah, that's typically when you're hanging out with your grandkids. My mom is 29 years old, and she'll be 29 again in June. But she has been 29 15 times or 25 times or something, or whatever it is. So, but she's 29 for sure. And she's playing with her grandkids who are 7 8. TJ's going on 9 or whatever, and she's in her mid-50s. And granted, my mom was a young mom. She was 19 when she had my brother Dustin, and 22 by the time she had all 3 of her kids. So it's slightly different than somebody who, like Dan and I, are going to be in our mid-50s when our kids graduate, right? But that doesn't mean we're not going to have grandkids by the time we're 65. I mean, and you still might have grandkids by the time you're 50,
Yeah.
Shawn. Because Victoria's 20. But with Zella, yeah, it's a completely different story. So it's just it's a crazy thing to think about how that.
Well, yeah, one of my best friends, her granddaughter is almost the exact same age as Zella. I think they're like a month apart or something like that. So we compare stories. Well, except for me, it's my kid, and her, it's her grandkid. It's like that should be me talking to my grandkid. Like,
Well, tell Victoria to hurry up, and then you can talk about your grandkid all you want.
she wants kids. Like, she's kind of in a no.
Oh, I know.
She's in a no kid mood right now. I don't know if it'll last.
That's really crazy to me though, because Victoria is so great with kids, and she loves kids, and she is like just wonderful with children.
There's a
I think it's
large
really
difference between taking care of or hanging out with other people's kids than having one run around your house.
You're totally right. You're absolutely right. There's always the option to be like, you can have this back now.
I'm done.
Yeah.
She might have decided, you know what? Actually, because like she watched Zella for us when we went on vacation, and she was like, that was a lot. She didn't realize just like how much work it is, and it's like it's a lot. It's a lot of work. And I think maybe that made her realize, like, whoa, there's a lot of difference between playing with my cousins that are babies and having one at the house
That you have to care for.
Yeah, because Zella was like, let's see, she'd have been like 14 months. So like still waking up in the middle of the night sometimes and couldn't quite talk. Like she's starting to talk a lot better now, but usually between 1 and 2, it's pretty hit or miss for a lot of kids. So she could say like 12 words, So it was a whole lot more crying, a lot more waking up, a lot more, lot more work. That's definitely a good age to test somebody if they want to have a kid, because when they're brand new, it's a little overwhelming because they're brand new and you're not used to everything. But they sleep and eat, like that's all they do for the first month. Like they're not that much work really. Make sure they got a clean diaper, make sure you put food in them. Like other than that, they sleep.
That's literally when I first met Denara, how I told her, like, this is all you got to do. I'm super simple. You just got to make sure my diaper's clean, and you got to make sure to feed me, and I'll be happy.
And then she's like, this is the guy I'm going to marry.
Yep. That's what she said. That's the moment she knew she was in love with me.
You got to change diapers? I'm in. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Adult diapers. That poor woman.
Oh my god. So speaking of Victoria being older and having those moments where she babysits her sisters, how has your relationship with Victoria changed as she has become an adult? And your relationship with Victoria, as you've said, is absolutely incredible, super open, and it's the type of relationship I think every parent should strive for with their children. But how has that informed your decisions on how you parent Amelia and Zella?
I mean, honestly, I would hope that they would turn out the same way. She's a lot like me. Like, she doesn't smoke, she doesn't drink, she doesn't do drugs, she's not out being crazy, she's not, been arrested, she's not, like she's a really good kid. She works, she has a full-time job, so she's outside of not going to college, which isn't a big deal. Like she was supposed to, she wanted to, but then she changed her mind. So it's like, all right, whatever, I wish she had a plan, but I didn't have a plan when I was her age. So it's like, I don't want to be hypocritical in the aspect that's like, well, you gotta have a plan. I mean, I can try. I've tried to give her a nudge, because I wish I had a plan when I was her age. Like it'd have been nice if I'd had a plan. So I try and I've tried to let her know, like, hey, you really need to figure it out. You got time, so don't feel like you got to do it tomorrow, but you don't want to wait until you're in your 30s.
And even if that plan is just building a solid foundation, or plan B, like even if it is just building a solid plan B and then going and doing something that you want to try, that you want to do, like that's something I wish I did. I wish, because like you, when I didn't even go to college. You went to college, I didn't even go to college until I was 27. And by then I had built up a few hard skills that I could fall back on, but I didn't have a solid plan B. I was just flying by the seat of my pants, and that is something that I really wish that I did, was even if I didn't have a definitive plan A, I wish I built myself a better foundation to have a plan B if my plan A or my passions and dreams didn't work out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So far, you just got to kind of wait. Kids change their mind from day to day. So I've just been trying to be supportive in the same way and be disciplined in this, disciplinary in the same way, so that hopefully, if Zella and Amelia turn out as great as Victoria, that's a win.
Fair enough. Do you find it difficult, though, with how vastly different each one of your children are? Because Victoria and Zella, I haven't spent much time at all with Zella, but they seem to be fairly similar temperament as far as, Zella's only, coming up on 2, but when Victoria was that age, they seemed kind of similar, but Amelia is completely different personality from Victoria. So how do you balance those actions, because you want to give her a similar kind of parenting, but there's got to be, you know, some difficulties when trying to apply, discipline A that worked well on Victoria, but now you have Amelia who is a completely different child, right?
Yeah, like when Amelia started getting a little bit older, she struggles a lot with emotional interactions. Like she didn't like hugs or to be touched when she was little. And like when the parents or grandparents, aunts and uncles and stuff, like they come over and they all, they would always ask for a hug. Thankfully our education has progressed and, we've been able to teach adults like, hey, if a kid says no, I mean no, don't force hugs on them and stuff. But that doesn't stop the adult from feeling sad that they didn't get to hug their nephew or niece, or, for grandparents, they didn't get to hug their grandkid. You're like, you grow up hoping one day you'll get to see your grandkids, and then the grandkid doesn't even want to hug you. It's like, so we had to explain to people, it's like, well, she doesn't hug us either. It's not you. Don't feel bad. Like,
Yeah,
um,
she's sensory overload big time.
yeah. So
Yeah.
like,
It's a lot easier to tell an adult and have the adult manage their emotion about that than it is for a kid. If a kid doesn't want to be touched, doesn't want to be hugged, you got to respect it because, yeah, they're overstimulated.
yeah. She has auditory issues, but she gets that from me. I have trouble with loud noises. Like I wear ear protection all the time. It's one of the safety things the safety guys never have to yell at me about. I will wear ear protection even when it's quiet. So we got her little kid ear muff ear protection. She doesn't like the blender would make her burst into tears because it was too loud, so she's quite a bit different. So we had to learn how to change our focus, especially when she remembers everything, so like if you yell at her about something, she just remembers that it was like a horrible experience, and it sticks in her head. She doesn't understand social interactions as well as you think she would. She has emotional outbursts that I'm sure a lot of kids have, but that she had way more than the average. The average. So the big difference was making sure that she got the same message that I tried to give Victoria for each thing, but in a way that didn't make her freak out. Like you basically had to learn to tell her you were proud of her for everything instead of, like you would just give your kid a hug. She doesn't want to be hugged. I don't know how much she did or didn't need that emotional reinforcement, but I would think she would. You just assume she does, or hope she does. So
Yeah.
you would tell her like I tell Amelia way more when she was younger. Like that she did a good job. I'm proud of her. And, like her mama loves her, daddy loves her. Like verbal interaction to give that reinforcement that the physical interaction she wouldn't get, that she didn't seem to even want. So
Sure.
Yeah, I remember Victoria was quite the opposite. Victoria loved and still loves that physical interaction. She will always come up to you and, put her hand on your arm. She'll always come up to you and put your, like, start just like grabbing your shoulders, and she's always there. And she was always like that. She was always interacting physically with you. So that had to have been, I mean, especially after 12 years, however old she was, 12 or 13 when Amelia was born, right? 12. So that had to have been a big change when Amelia was evolving into this kid that she is now. And
yeah, it was weird at first because, like I said, she started walking at 7 months and talking at a year old. So like really quickly, she went from baby to toddler, and even in the first year, like Felix was just being held and smiling and loving it. She didn't want to be held. She'd let you hold her, but she'd much rather just be sitting next to you. So even from the start, it was different. So it's like it seemed weird. And then once she got into the 1 to 2 year range, and the 2 year range where like it became way more apparent that she didn't even want hugs. She would do the like hugging, your aunt that you don't know very well kind of hug when you were a kid. You're just like, all right, that's a hug, right? She would do that, or she'd run up and she'd just do the one arm, like lean into you, like that's a hug, right? And then, like be done. And so early on, you could tell she reacted differently to physical interaction. So it was a disappointment and different for sure, but it happened early enough that it's like, oh, okay, it's not anything we've done wrong. It's not anything that we messed up. She's obviously doesn't like this. So you just kind of accept that, hey, this one's different than others, you know.
Yeah, yeah, she is, and she's so special in so many ways. Just like Victoria was, just like Zella is, just like I'm sure Felix is. You know, they're special in their own little way. They have their own little quirks. Some of Amelia's quirks just happen to be a little bit bigger than other kids, and some kids have even bigger quirks. Like everybody's different, and
That makes it great.
exactly. That's exactly what I was leading to. Is it just makes every kid different, and we were talking about this before. How it's amazing that obviously, with Victoria and Amelia and Victoria and Zella, Victoria had a different mom. They're half sisters, so it's not quite the same. But even from Amelia to Zella, like they're different. Like from everything you tell me about Zella, they're completely different. But same parents, same parenting styles, and it's the same with TJ and Charlie. TJ, he would line up his cars, like perfectly, and they'd be color coded, and he would just have all of his cars lined up. And Charlie, she'll sprint across the front yard naked, like just screaming at the top of her lungs. Like it was just they're two completely different little humans from the same parents, same parenting styles, grew up together. They're growing up together with the same parents, and yet TJ is this little.
Obviously, TJ takes after his mom, and Charlie takes after Troy.
Yeah. Well, it's been a wonderful, wonderful time here, but I got one more question for you. Knowing what you know now, looking back, what advice would you give yourself when you were a new father? Think way back. What would you tell?
Okay, he's not that old. You don't have to say way back. Come on.
Well,
way back.
When Victoria was born, right? What advice would you give that Shawn?
I mean, it's the same advice I've given Ryan, the same advice I gave you, Dan. It's the same advice I give to everybody that I find out is expecting, because it's one of those, mistakes I made. And it wasn't just me, my wife at the time, same thing. So when the baby arrives, everyone is going to want to help you. Everyone, your parents, your grandparents, the neighbors, your cousins, like everybody that has meaning to you and the baby is going to want to help. They're going to want to clean for you. They're going to want to run errands for you. They're going to want to cook for you. They're going to offer all these things. And, most people's initial reaction is prideful, like, nah, I don't need the help. Like we'll have it. We'll take care of it. People naturally don't want to just accept the charity that people want to give because we just feel we need to earn that ourselves. Don't do that, because at about the 3-month mark, nobody gives a crap. The baby's not new. So all of the running for errands and all the extra chores and all the free babysitting, all the things that people offer, it just starts disappearing because the baby's not brand new and exciting anymore. But you still have the baby and you're still exhausted and you still wish, like, oh, I should have asked mom to go ahead and do all of the laundry for me, because that would have been awesome, but we, outside of offers to watch the baby, people still continue to do that. They will always try and help because people like to watch and interact with the baby and even the toddlers and the kids, because they can then go, here you go, and give it back like you did. But not like the beginning, not like right when you have the baby. Everyone just offers the sun and the moon. Take advantage of it, because it goes away quick, and the work is still there, and it will be there until you die.
All right.
Yeah, no, fair. It's I've actually mentioned that, I think last week or a couple weeks ago in one of the episodes. I was like, my brother gave me this advice and it seems like super sound advice, because Yeah, honestly, you see that a lot. You see when a baby is first born, the parents, they, especially the moms, but they don't want to let go of the kid. They don't want to step away from the kid. And like you said, after 3 to 6 months, everybody's just, the kid's not new anymore. It's not as exciting now, and the help's not there as much anymore now. And that's the time when the mom and the dad are like, okay, now I feel comfortable letting go of the kid,
And nobody's
but
going to help.
but nobody's there. So
Right about the time maternity leave wears off, like everybody stops wanting to give you help. So
yeah,
just
so,
take it. Like,
yeah, just take it.
Don't feel bad. They're offering. Everybody wants to help because they're offering this help because they were there. They remember being tired and going, man, I still got to do laundry. It's like, I still got to cook dinner. Like they were there. They've been there. They've had the baby. They've been exhausted and wishing somebody would help. So they're helping. Like, hey, we know what it's like. We'll help you out. Like, let them, because it is the first few weeks till you get the hang of it. It does get better, but it doesn't ever get amazing until they start sleeping through the night. Because like even now, I don't know, is Felix sleeping through the night for you, Dan?
He was, and that stopped, and now he's waking up once usually a night. He's also got 2 teeth popping through, so it's kind of
That's always
yeah. So it's been the teething portion has been interesting because it's changed a little bit. But yeah, he was sleeping through the night for a good chunk of time, and then he started teething, and he's awake at least once every night. Currently struggling to go to sleep. So
poor kid.
Yeah.
On the plus side, once the teeth start coming in, it's miserable for like a few months, but then they're all in. I mean, they all come in pretty quick. Just bam, 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 and then
yeah, he went from none to 2. They're coming in at the same time. So right, these front
Which two are they? The front two?
the front bottom 2, just both of them are rising right up.
Nice.
So
yeah, the front 8 or so come in pretty quickly. So it's like, yeah, it's miserable, but at least they all kind of come in pretty quick by themselves, and then we get through it. It's not one every 6 months for the next 5 years. You're just like, oh my God, kill me now, please.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Shawn, for being willing to give us a bit of your time and answer some questions for us. It means a lot to me, and it means a lot to this podcast, because your experience, although not unique, is still something that anybody can learn from, especially being a father in your mid-40s for the third time. It comes with its own unique challenges, as you've said. So it's
is a challenge. Like,
well, at least the way I'm looking at it is really, I mean, yes, you are still a father to Victoria, and you will always be a father to Victoria, but at least Victoria is self-sufficient at this point for the most part, right?
It's much better.
Yeah. So
Amelia was born. She was more dependent on her parents. So, yeah.
But it's been really wonderful for me having you on here, and we really appreciate it. So, Dan, you got any final words for Shawn?
Yeah, thanks again for coming on here. It's always a pleasure talking with you. And you have a lot of good insight because you've been a dad for a long time, and you're a new father again, right? So it's a good perspective with a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience to share, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries. And I personally know how difficult it is, because even after the first one, it's still hard. It's hard in a different way, though, because you're not surprised. You're like, oh, son of a bitch, I'm going to have to change diapers 4 or 5 times a day for the next, 3 or 4 years. It feels like for 3 or 4 years, but they're going to wake up 4 or 5 times a night. You just know, all the things, like, you're at least you're not surprised by it, but now it's like, oh man, I know this is coming. So
here we go again.
Yeah, exactly. So I know the difficulties. So it's like, it's cool that you guys are trying to put something out there to help dads. Guys don't always get the support that they need, especially when it comes to parenting. There's a lot of bad dads out there that have ruined it for a lot of us, but like, because of it, we often get pushed to the sidelines or just completely, forgotten. So it's good that you guys are creating this environment where it's like, hey, come listen to the rest of us also struggle and try and figure it out. And hopefully you can figure it out along with us, kind of thing. You know, you don't have to feel alone in this random struggle.
Totally. And that's exactly why we're doing this. So to hear you say that really means a lot. So thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we will call it there.
Yeah. It's getting late.
Yeah. Yes, it is. But I love you, dude. You have a wonderful night, and we'll talk soon.
It has been a pleasure.
Yeah. Good talking to you guys. Love you, Ryan. Bye, Dan.
Bye. Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.
Well, all right, everybody. That wraps up the interview today. I hope you really enjoyed it. It was especially fun for me. But that brings us to the final segment of the day. As always, it is Dan's weekly recommendation. What do you got for us this week, Dan?
Today, I'm throwing back to something we mentioned a week or two ago. The plastic adjustable baby gates. These things are pretty great. Your baby's going to start crawling very fast. They will figure out, hey, I can move, and then they're gone. And then they start standing and walking and running in no time flat. Felix is yet to actually start walking, but he's standing up, and I expect in a week or two, he's going to be just gone. These gates are great because it means no matter what, they are still sequestered into a small area. You keep it stable so it can't fall over, and your baby can't get too far before you go, oh crap, you got to go chase after, because the moment you blink, they're gone. So baby gates, fencing, it's wonderful. Look for one of these where the sections are adjustable, because then you can move it however you need to fit the room that you're blocking them in. It's good stuff.
And I believe you said that yours also has the ability to anchor into the wall as well for extra strength.
Yeah, so you can anchor it into a wall so that way it has extra stability. I mean, it's still plastic, but the joints in it are pretty rigid, so it's hard to actually bend them. So a baby, as strong as they get, it's going to be real hard for them to actually bend it out of shape, but it shouldn't be any problem when you're actually setting it up. But yeah, the ends have the ability to get bracketed to the wall, gives it extra support, and we got it between a bunch of stuff, so it's not going anywhere. So
heck yeah. Yeah, everybody always looks forward to those first steps. Everybody's like, oh my God, he's about to take his first steps. And then a week later, they're like, he's everywhere.
I know. I'm so excited for it. And at the same time, I'm so terrified for it.
Well, it's a good thing babies are basically made of rubber. But all right, everybody, that wraps up this week's episode. Thank you, Dan, for your recommendation, as always. And thank you all for tuning in. It has been an absolute blast, as it always is every single week. Me and Dan just basically have fun. The fact that we're doing this is just still blowing my mind. But please be sure to follow the podcast on whatever platform you are listening. It helps us out immensely. But in the meantime, Dan, any final words?
You stay classy, planet Earth.